But we'll move on into the Premier League action from the weekend, and possibly the biggest game of the weekend, with exception to the Spurs-Chelsea game.
Yeah.
Arsenal versus Newcastle.
Yeah, the scoreline wasn't the biggest, but it's the biggest talking point.
Biggest,
one, yeah.
And on paper, quite a good fixture.
Yeah.
VAR at the centre of all the controversy again.
Yet again.
And maybe we're lucky that is the case from our point of view, because there wasn't an awful lot to talk about from the game.
No, there was, obviously I was out anyway, but the amount of VAR decisions and like just decisions in general for that game, I just lost count. Like,
well, it's shocking.
It's just, you've got the Havertz one, you've got did the ball go out? Was it a foul in the box?
Was it offside?
Was it offside? Yeah.
And then obviously after that, what's transpired following it is Arteta's quite emotional post-match interview.
Yeah.
Then you've also had Arsenal coming out with a statement as a club statement backing the manager, which has then all spiked controversy and talking points on all the media outlets about, one, the decisions in the first place, and then two, Arsenal and Arteta's decisions to voice their opinions so vocally.
So Simon Jordan on TalkSport actually said, like, if you're an owner, you back your manager, don't you? Like, anyway, but he was saying the reason why Arsenal have been so good lately is because of the fire and the what's it called, like the eagerness and like how, because you always see Arteta and he's like in your face all the time, and he's brought that to Arsenal and it's making them play better.
That is the sort of character he is, and I think that goes across into the players.
Yeah. So if you as a club like tell him off or whatever they do, you might actually take some of that away from him and then start to do worse.
And equally, even if it isn't just Arteta, there's a lot of managers that I think, based on that particular decision that he's unhappy with, would have reacted similarly. I think you'd have seen someone like Jurgen Klopp probably go off the rails a little bit with a decision like that. Any manager would have, but certainly the bigger characters that we know in the Premier League.
So yeah, obviously, so Newcastle won 1-0, but they were saying as well, weren't they? Like, if Arsenal didn't lose that game, like, Arteta wouldn't even say anything.
Yeah.
The only thing that we pointed out was in the interviews after the game, the interviewer was like saying to Arteta, what's his thoughts and everything. So he went through every single decision, how it's a joke, I feel sick, all that. But the interviewer never once asked him, so what about the Havertz challenge then?
Yeah, so maybe we'll touch on the Havertz challenge first, because I think that came a lot earlier in the game.
Yeah.
To me, I said before when me and you were discussing it, rewatching the highlights ready for the podcast, I don't have a huge issue with the fact that the on-field referees give a yellow card.
No, I don't.
Because I don't think you can always see as well. And he's got a okay view of it, but he's not close, not really, really close to the phase of play. But from how we've seen VAR intervene for things like this in the past, especially tackles, I can't believe that they've not made him go and look at the monitor or had a word in his ear. Because
did he not look at the monitor for that?
Not as far as I'm aware. And because this is one where, obviously, if it's the other way around, if the referee gives him a red card, it stands all day. Because to me, I've watched that now 3 or 4 times maybe. That's a Stonewall red.
Yeah, it goes off the floor, doesn't it?
He's off the floor. I know the contact isn't huge, but there is contact, and the contact's high. And I also think it's a really stupid challenge from Havertz anyway, because I know that you might want to get the crowd up and things like this, and the game was probably a bit tense, but it was a bit of a nothing situation.
Yeah, he was like halfway on the pitch, not going anywhere.
Yeah,
he just
literally
goes out.
right on the byline.
Yeah.
I think he's been really stupid, and then also really lucky to not get sent off. But again, the fact, maybe it's because of some decisions that have gone against us, and I'm sure other fans feel similarly when everybody's had decisions against them at times this season. But that one, if you were a Newcastle fan, with the opportunity for Arsenal to go down to 10 men quite early on in the game, I think you'd be a bit annoyed at that. I mean, ultimately, they've gone and won in the game.
Yeah, and that's partly, well, you say that, but later on in the game, you had Bruno Guimaraes, who intentionally elbowed someone in the head.
Yeah, I don't know how. Again, I don't really know how he's got away with that one. They did look at that one.
Yeah, they looked at it.
I'm pretty sure
they did. Yeah,
whether they told the referee, they didn't tell the referee to look, but I'm sure he knew that. Oh, we're looking at something. It looks deliberate. It's a bit of shithousery. I don't think it's really, really nasty. Because he doesn't really get much on it.
If you're watching it,
but he intends to do it.
He definitely intends to do it. And how VAR haven't gone, it's intentional.
Yeah.
Considering, do you remember when McTominay like tapped Son in the face?
Oh yeah,
and they disallowed the goal. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned Bruno Guimaraes a few weeks back when they beat PSG. He had a bit of a moment of madness where he did a similar thing. He ran past and clocked someone on the head.
Yeah.
And he got away with it that time. I mean, that was in Europe, and maybe it's a little bit different. Wasn't maybe as obvious. I feel like the commentators and everybody picked up on this particular incident.
Yeah.
It didn't get booked, nothing. Seemed to just move on.
Gary Neville even said that's definitely intentional.
Yeah.
So if we can all see it, why is VAR gone there?
He's also been clever, hasn't he? He's clearly he's got away with it.
Yeah.
Got away with it midweek when they played PSG, whenever that was, 3 or 4 weeks back. And maybe he just has it right where he's towing the line and he's being a bit of a shithouse, and for some reason he's getting away with these decisions. But obviously the huge talking point, obviously the Havertz one was a big talking point, but ultimately the game carried on.
So that's 2 sending offs already.
It could well have been. And there was a yellow for one, which that one's almost worse because they've looked at it, had the chance to send him off and failed to.
What's this one?
The Havertz one.
Oh, yeah.
The Bruno Guimaraes one, that like the referee never saw it. VAR have intervened, decided that it wasn't enough. The goal, it's a shit goal. First of all, I'm pretty certain it's out of play.
Yeah, if you look at it, it looks to us like it's out.
Yeah, I've seen a few, like we had one, didn't we? Garnacho.
No, it was Rashford.
Rashford.
It was Højlund's first goal, and they disallowed that.
Like that one, I could at least see that was closer than this.
I thought
this
it
to
was.
me just looks out.
Yeah, I thought it was.
They're saying that they don't have the right angles.
Yeah,
I don't know how you can't have the right angles.
That's bad, but I also agree with basically if VAR don't have the right angles, then you just got to hold your hands up and go, okay, it's the referee's decision then, and the referee's decision was it was still in play.
Yeah.
So that's fair enough for me.
But that, why is the referee giving that anyway? Surely that's what the linesmen are there for as well.
Yeah.
Unless he is the linesman has give that decision, I don't know. But I think that one, when we've watched it back, it looks obviously out to me. And when they're saying they do and don't have the angles, the angles that I've seen, it looks out. And they've obviously seen those.
Yeah, didn't they say something like, we can't fully confirm that, it was out, so...
I understand that it's subjective, but to me, it looks like it's gone.
Yeah.
That, to me, would be the biggest of the three. A lot of people, like we said, TalkSport had a lot of focus on the push from Joe Linton. Is it a foul? Is it a push? I think the ball being out's the biggest one, personally.
Yeah.
If it was against us, and I was sort of weighing in on it, that's the most annoyed I'd be, because I don't think the ball should even be in play to go any further.
No.
Then if you get into that one, I think it's soft if it's a foul.
Yeah.
I'm not really wholly convinced by that.
I'd never in a million years want that as a foul.
No. But we've seen less given.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's just wholly inconsistent. I don't know.
You don't want the game to go to, like, it's running at a risk if you're giving fouls away for that.
Yeah.
If you're giving them as like free kicks, penalties, and that, the game's just going to be dead.
I think from the way it looks, obviously everyone, as much as whether they should be or shouldn't be, because people say play to the whistle, all this, you can see that they're not really ready for, the Arsenal defenders aren't, in my opinion, ready for this ball to come in, because they think the play's finished.
Yeah, because, is it Saliba?
Yeah.
Saliba's on his own.
Yeah. I think they think they've cleared the danger. Suddenly, there's another ball coming back in the area. You got Joe Linton, he's a big guy. He's man to man. Saliba looks like he's already sort of going down to me, with or without the contact from Joe Linton.
Gary Neville picked up on it, didn't he, saying he was already going like down a bit.
It does look like he'd already lost balance or was already ducking to either dodge the ball or try and get the ball. I'm not sure what's going through his head at that point. Or maybe he's trying to buy the foul. Maybe he feels the contact and thinks, I'll get this. Yeah. The question of offside I don't really understand, because none of them look anywhere near offside to me.
No.
So I can understand that they'll obviously check it. But when I've seen some Arsenal fans be like, oh, well, there's 3 things there and they got them all wrong. It's never offside, I'm pretty certain.
No. And if you're looking at offside there, like, just give us a break. Come on, you're going to be looking at everything, aren't you? It's like,
but how long? I didn't watch this live. I don't know how long it took them to do the check because there's so many things to check.
I'm not actually sure on that, to be honest.
I'll have to look into that.
I know the United one, when they was checking that offside, we'll obviously get onto that. When they was checking that took forever. It was over 2 minutes.
It's shocking. I mean, people complain that it takes long.
They actually said, didn't they? Was it Alan Pardew? He came out and he says they should put a 2-minute thing on. So you can't...
If they can't get it within that time.
Yeah, just fucking...
It's the on-field decision or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's poor. I think if you're an Arsenal fan, you could feel maybe a bit hard done by. But in my personal opinion, and this would be letting my own bias creep in, I think you've got away with a fair few this season. So it's about time one came and bit you, personally. But Newcastle looked like they gave it a little bit more, but at the same time, it was a pretty poor game.
But hats off to Newcastle, because I mean they had a tough start, didn't they?
They've had a lot of difficult opening fixtures, coupled with quite a difficult Champions League group as well.
Yeah, so I think they're getting some decent results early on. So I think Newcastle are doing great,
because I think they are either just above or just around United at the minute in the table, but they've obviously played a lot more difficult games. But they seem to be. I think they're getting going now a little bit.
So some teams are better against the bigger teams than the small ones, though. So you never know.
We had seasons of United being a bit like that. Not sure anymore. Arsenal, are they having a bit of a wobble maybe, or do you think it's the VAR decision's a big part of that game, whether or not they get anything from the match? They obviously lost midweek.
Arsenal fans will say nothing else about the game apart from these decisions. So personally, I don't think they were having a wobble. At the very start of the season, I always said that they weren't as good as last. It's
a difficult one for me. I think I have had tinted glasses on it, and I have quite a strong dislike for Arsenal. I think probably because of the eras when we were growing up as United fans. So I kind of never really rated them a lot last season. Obviously, in retrospect, I appreciate that they were much improved.
Yeah.
But I never fancied them to win it last year, despite the fact they were very strong and led the league for a huge part of the season.
Yeah, I thought obviously towards the end as well, where they didn't win it, Saliba was a massive difference in that.
Definitely a big miss. But you'd have to say, with the fact they've got the majority of the players they had last year, they've got another year under the belt of playing together, and then they brought someone like Declan Rice in. I know they brought Timber in, and he's not been able to bed in.
Everyone says about Arteta being this really good manager and that. Well, fair enough, he might be okay. I don't really believe he is that top manager, but he's got you playing really good football. Fair enough, but I think his signings are questionable.
In general,
just in general. I think he tries to get players in that he just didn't need. So, like Havertz. You didn't need that player. You get rid of Xhaka and get Havertz in. How does that work?
The strangest thing with that one, not even just for Havertz coming in, was Xhaka was relatively poor for the majority of his Arsenal career.
He started playing well, didn't he?
You finally got some good out of him. I'm like, God, what a redemption arc this could be. I imagine, I know they didn't win the league, but imagine, he was captain, he threw the armband on the floor, the fans hated him. And if they would have won the league last year when he was still there, what a turnaround that could have been.
Yeah.
But obviously that didn't turn out that way, and maybe it was one between himself and the manager. He thought, I can go out on a high now. I haven't had the best time here, but the fans will remember me better if I go at this moment. The Havertz one is proving to be poor as the season's going on. I know it was a very obvious flop to pick out.
What's a bigger flop, him or Anthony?
It's difficult, isn't it?
I don't think it. As much as I don't like Havertz, I think Anthony's a bigger flop.
I think in retrospect, I would have to agree. But if you go back and look at the impact upon signing, Havertz has failed to do anything of note, really. I'm sure he's had some okay link-up play and he's looked all right in phases for Arsenal. That's what the fans will tell you. But Anthony came in and scored in 3 or 4 games in a row when he
Yeah,
joined
he
Manchester
did, yeah.
United. And don't get me wrong, he's been one-dimensional and horrible to watch.
Yeah.
The majority of the time he's been there. But Havertz hasn't even had that impact when he's joined Arsenal. And they were already, we've touched on this in the past, Arsenal are already a well-oiled machine. So I think you should be coming in and you should have a lot higher chance of hitting the ground running than someone joining Manchester United right now or last season, whatever way you look at it. So I probably would say Anthony is more of a flop because the manager brought him in and so he's worked with him before. He had a huge price tag.
Yeah,
And he's
a bit
had a lot
more
more time to prove himself. Havertz could go and prove us wrong yet. I still don't think that will be the case.
Highly doubt it.